Welcome to lesson 3. In lesson 3 we will serve food from a blech. The right way to do it. Previous lesson we arranged the blech. We have our soup, vegetables, we have our cholent on the blech. Come home from davening Friday night, sing Shalom Aleichem, bless your children, we're ready to eat the meal, make kiddush, time to serve the soup Friday night. Very big difference whether or not you want to keep the soup hot in case someone wants doubles or not. Simple thing is, you're serving soup once, take the food, the soup off the pot, off the blech, put it down, and serve it. Take your bowl. Now this pot is what we call the kli rishon shelo al ha'esh. It is the pot that it was cooked in. It's still hot, but it's not on the fire anymore. In the last lesson we said that while the food was on the blech, even in zone B, where it's not over the fire, you weren't allowed to take even fully cooked food and put it in that pot. As long as it's on the place of the blech which is hot, yad soledes, where your hand would pull back from, you can't even add fully cooked noodles to it. However, once the pot is off the fire, even though it's still hot, it's yad soledes, and you're not allowed to put raw food in there, you're allowed to put fully cooked food. So let's say you want to give everybody soup noodles. You cooked some noodles before Shabbos. You're allowed to add them to this bowl, to this pot. Ein bishul achar bishul, once something was cooked, you're allowed to reheat it, even in putting it into a kli rishon, as long as it's not on the fire. You're allowed to do that. So, you take your ladle. Now, if the ladle was wet before Shabbos, let's say you washed it, to make sure that you dry it. Why? Because if you have water that you washed the ladle with, that water is not cooked. You're putting it into a kli rishon, you're putting it into this pot, even though it's not on the fire. As long as it's yad soledes, as long as the soup is here is hot, if you're going to take uncooked water and put it in, it's going to be cooking that water. That's a Torah prohibition. So you are going to dry your ladle, make sure that it's not hot. Now, if this was called the kli rishon, the first pot that it was cooked in, this is called the kli sheni. You transferred the soup, the hot soup. It's still hot, but it's not in the bowl, in the pot that it was cooked in. It's in a bowl. In the kli sheni, you can take salt. Salt, just as the noodles were cooked already, table salt, conventional table salt, and add salt to it. Bring it to the table, everyone can add salt to it. However, if you have some salt that was never cooked before, and mind this, let's say pink Himalayan salt, which is raw, never been cooked before, so you can't take something that's never been cooked and put it even into the kli sheni. So you wouldn't do that. You would make sure you can put into this, and what you cannot put into this kli rishon, you cannot add something that was baked but not cooked. So let's say you have croutons that were baked but not cooked. There's a dispute as to whether or not we say, even though it's fully baked, can you put it into a pot to cook? It's machlokas. So to add croutons to that are baked, you wouldn't be allowed to, but to put croutons into this bowl, you can. So if you want to put croutons on the table to give everyone a choice of having croutons, they'll be okay. Anyone to add salt, be okay. People to take their challah and dip it into the bowl, it's okay, this is a kli sheni. As long as the food was cooked already, you're allowed to. But to take raw spices, which had not been cooked or baked at all, they're raw, to add them to a hot kli sheni also should not to do. Now let's say instead of serving directly from the pot to the bowl, you put the soup into a tureen and brought the tureen to the table. So now we have kli rishon. This is the pot that it was cooked in. Now this tureen is a kli sheni. The tureen is what is transferred to. And then when you put it into the bowl, it's a kli shlishi. Now ask your rabbi for advice as to whether or not you could take something that's raw and put it into there. There are different opinions as to whether a kli sheni, whether you could put something that hasn't been cooked into a kli sheni. So into a kli shlishi. This is a kli rishon, kli sheni, kli shlishi. Can you add something to a third pot, a third vessel, removed twice? Can you take something that's raw and add it to that? There's a question. There's a difference of opinions. Ask your rabbi as to how you should conduct yourself. So this is, the soup has been served. Bring it to the table. Whether you served it with a tureen or not, people could add noodles. People could add salt that has been cooked, and they could add even their croutons. Let's say, however, you don't want to take the pot off the blech. Your soup is so good that people want doubles afterwards and you want it to stay hot. So then what you should do is arrange the things on the blech so that you can move the soup off the fire. Again, you're allowed to move other things closer to the fire as long as they're fully cooked. Now you have your soup off the fire. If you serve the soup now off the fire, same thing applies. You can serve it from here. And after you serve it, while everyone is enjoying the soup, you can move it back to the fire, keep it hot, or keep it over here, cover it. And then, same thing as far as adding things to it, nothing has changed. But what has changed is that you can now put the cover back on and move it close to the fire, leave it over here. It'll stay hot so that if someone wants doubles, you'll be able to serve them doubles, hot doubles that they'll be able to enjoy. As we said, after you serve your Friday night meal, then you'll decide how close you should keep your cholent to the fire. As long as the cholent has been fully cooked, you'll let it move it closer to the fire. Keep it not too close to the fire because you don't want it to burn, not too far away from the fire, you don't want it to get spoiled.